So just, again, hear me out, and then you can disagree, or we can agree. Who knows? Maybe if you hear me, you may find out you agree with me. Kamala Harris is one of the few people who was critical of the Biden administration's position on Gaza. She was one of the few people, along with Ayman Mohyeldin and Mehdi Hassan last year before he was fired, who spoke out against what the Biden/Harris administration did. She also spoke out against Kamala's response to it. I agree with you that they were too laudatory of the Kamala Harris campaign, and I agree with you that in general, they haven't done a sufficient autopsy of the Democratic Party, much less the Harris campaign, which I think could not have won anyway. I don't think she was a strong candidate, and I don't think she had a strong message to the American people. I suspect we agree on that. Where I disagree with you is that Kamala Harris was not unwilling to be critical. Joy Reid was not unwilling to be critical of.
Anna Kasparian went on Piers Morgan Uncensored and took on a panel of woke lunatics live on air. She didn't hold back and completely schooled them on their nonsense. Let's check it out together.
And then Don Lemon responded.
The big news tonight will be Joy Reid's final show on MSNBC. Single tear, white woman tears happening right here, Joy. She was officially fired over the weekend because she's a racist, horrible news anchor with no ratings.
The worst person on television was fired from NBC in the Today Show a few years ago, and that's Megyn Kelly. So let me just say to Megyn Kelly, in my 30-some years as a journalist and my 50-some years as a person of color, go fuck.
I do love the way that Don positions himself as the antidote to toxicity, and then tells people to go fuck themselves. But Anna, look, it's all blowing up. This, I do think it's interesting that MSNBC, having gone all in on Kamala Harris and all out on Trump because of the election result, now seem to be in some kind of crisis of confidence about what they should be. What do you think of it?
Well, I actually think that, the obsession over the conversation on race and race baiting kind of misses the mark on what I think MSNBC is really vulnerable on, and that's the issue of trust and credibility among audience members or anyone who might be considering MSNBC as a news source. So, for instance, Kamala Harris did not run a flawless campaign. Not by a long shot. Okay, her campaign was very flawed. It did not have a focused message. She was taking advice from, corporate executives within her family, and she moved off of the economic issues that obviously voters consistently communicated through polling they cared the most about. And so when she goes on camera and says that Kamala Harris ran a flawless campaign after the election, in which Donald Trump wins all the swing states in the popular vote, I think audiences start to become more cynical about where they're getting their information. And so a lot of lies were kind of debunked in the aftermath of the election. And when I say lies, I'm specifically referring to how fantastic the Democratic Party is, how they really have a vision for the future, how flawless Kamala Harris is. Even though the aggregate of polls showed that she was trailing Donald Trump, we kept hearing all of these rosy news reports about how she was doing fantastic. And so I think the Democratic Party and the left in general really needs to have a moment of self-reflection instead of seeking out news content that validates everything that they believe and want to hear. And that's honestly the biggest flaw and downside of the Democratic Party at the moment. And people like Joy Reid, unfortunately, foster that kind of environment that made them think, no, we're killing it. We're doing great. Now, I don't think that MSNBC has learned the right lessons because they're basically replacing Joy Reid's hour with other individuals who are, never Trump Democrats, although Michael Steele used to be the head of the Republican National Committee, but nonetheless, he hates Trump. And so they're going to keep focusing on uplifting Democrats that I think really need to get back in touch with the American people and understand what their genuine concerns are. They're not doing that right now. I think they're looking for other mouthpieces that are willing to just tell them what they want to hear.
All right, let's talk about this. Anna Kasparian just torched Joy Reid and MSNBC. And honestly, she's 100% right. She called them out for pushing race-baiting nonsense instead of addressing their real problem. Nobody trusts them anymore. She absolutely ripped apart the idea that Kamala Harris ran a flawless campaign. I mean, come on. Flawless? Kamala's campaign was an absolute train wreck. She flip-flopped, took terrible advice, and ignored the real issues voters actually care about: the economy, inflation, jobs. But MSNBC acted like she was the second coming of Obama, completely disconnected from reality. And let's be real, this is why the left keeps losing. They live in an echo chamber where they don't even bother to listen to what Americans actually want. Instead, they double down on gaslighting their own audience, pretending everything is great when the economy is in shambles, the border is a mess, and Biden can barely finish a sentence. Kasparian hit the nail on the head when she said MSNBC hasn't learned a thing. They're just replacing Joy Reid with another never-Trumper Democrat who's going to do the exact same thing. Prop up the Democratic establishment, ignore the actual issues, and pretend everything is going great when it's clearly not. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't agree with Ana Kasparian on a lot, but she at least understands that the media's blind loyalty to the Democratic Party is a problem. Meanwhile, people like Joy Reid are out here pushing delusional talking points that nobody outside of their bubble actually believes. This is why Trump won. This is why he keeps winning. People are sick of being lied to. Americans care about their jobs, their families, and their country, not whatever MSNBC is trying to force feed them. And if the left doesn't wake up and start listening, they're going to keep getting crushed at the ballot box.
Why?
They're also hiring Eugene Daniels, who was a Kamala fanboy from Politico, to go over there and do this. So they're doubling down on stupid. They just, I think it was said earlier, they're just getting cheaper versions, right? So Joy Reid probably signed her contract when MSNBC was ascent. It's now flailing and falling apart financially and otherwise. So they're going in and getting cheaper versions of stupid.
Yeah, and it's interesting to watch CNN where Scott Jennings appears as the Republican voice and basically takes on sometimes 3-4 liberals at the same time, and often eats them all for breakfast. But it's very entertaining to watch. And Mark, you're shaking your head, but the problem I have with MSNBC, it's all completely one-way traffic. They're just not interested in having anybody on there who differs from the view that Trump's the devil and that's the end of it. Whereas I think what's happening at CNN with Scott Jennings is quite interesting. It's more interesting to watch. I like on this show, for example, as we're seeing right now, to have people with all different voices. The idea you only have one type of voice, particularly when you've just taken a massive beating with that voice in the election, it seems to me just bad business, isn't it?
No. To answer your question, the reason I was shaking my head was because it's simply not accurate what the person before me said. This idea that Joy Reid was saying that the Democratic Party is perfect and that they made no mistakes and that all the campaigns were flawless. That's simply not factual.
Mark Lamont is spot on with this one. MSNBC isn't learning a thing. They're just doubling down on stupid and replacing Joy Reid with a budget version of the same nonsense. Instead of actually fixing their credibility problem, they're just hiring another Kamala cheerleader to keep pushing the same tired talking points. And let's be real. MSNBC is sinking. Their ratings are dropping, their influence is fading, and now they're just cutting costs while keeping the same out-of-touch left-wing propaganda. They're not even trying to understand what real Americans care about. This is exactly why Trump won and why the left keeps losing. They refuse to change. They'd rather keep gaslighting people than admit they got it wrong.
So just, again, hear me out, and then you can disagree, and we can agree. Who knows? Maybe if you hear me, you may find out you agree with me. Kamala Harris is one of the few people who was critical of the Biden administration's position on Gaza. She was one of the few people, along with Ayman Mohyeldin and Mehdi Hassan last year before he was fired, who spoke out against what the Biden/Harris administration did. She also spoke out against Kamala's response to it. I agree with you that they were too laudatory of the Kamala Harris campaign, and I agree with you that in general, they haven't done a sufficient autopsy of the Democratic Party, much less the Harris campaign, which I think could not have won anyway. I don't think she was a strong candidate, and I don't think she had a strong message to the American people. I suspect we agree on that. Where I disagree with you is that Kamala Harris was not unwilling to be critical. Joy Reid was not unwilling to be critical of the party. I think the problem is that MSNBC in general is a left-wing / liberal, really, organ or political organ. Piers, no, I don't think that is inherently problematic. Donald Trump lost big the last election, and Fox News didn't hire me. You know,
No, but Fox
they
News
didn't double
does
down
have,
and hire more.
Yeah,
more.
but Fox News have people like Jessica Tarlov on the 5 and stuff that they will regularly have people on the left to give the other side, and actually it's just more interesting.
And that's fine. You're entitled to find Fox News more interesting. I happen to not find MSNBC interesting at all, so I'm not caping for MSNBC here. What I'm saying is that news outlets in general have a point of view, even ones that pretend that they don't. And I don't want to single MSNBC out as if they're the outlier ideological channel and the other ones are straight news.
All right, so what did we just witness? Another day, another example of the left refusing to face reality. MSNBC is falling apart, they're hiring cheaper, dumber replacements, and they're still pushing the same tired, woke nonsense that nobody's buying anymore. Anna Kasparian called them out, Marco Rubio shut them down, and Stephen Miller completely exposed their hypocrisy. It's clear as day. The media and the Democrats are stuck in their own bubble, and they have no clue why Americans are rejecting them. At the end of the day, this is why Trump's movement keeps growing. People are tired of the lies, tired of the gaslighting, and tired of the media pretending everything is fine when it's clearly not. But they won't change, so they'll just keep losing. If you enjoy this type of content, make sure to like and subscribe for more straight-up, no-nonsense commentary. Take care.